Today we're going to take a look at a few WWF or WWE versus WCW rivalries that could have actually happened, but for some reason or another they didn't take place. After Vince McMahon bought WCW, fans were quickly fantasy booking big matches and big rivalries featuring guys from both companies, and for a while there was legitimate excitement about the possibilities. Dream matches could now really happen. In short, the version of WCW who invaded WWF was less than ideal, with many of the big key stars of World Championship Wrestling absent, seeing as they had big contracts with Turner and they were getting paid to sit at home. Eventually, some of the bigger stars did make their way over to WWF, and the company did indeed book a few matches that fans could have only imagined a year or so prior, but some fans expected and wanted more. What I want to do today is look at rivalries and matches that could have taken place while avoiding booking matches from guys in separate companies. The superstars involved in these rivalries were working for WWF or WWE at the same time, so everything you see in this video could have actually happened, and there's even a few here that were penciled in but were later cancelled for different reasons. So just keep in mind that all the guys in this video were WWE employees when paired up together, and they were all active wrestlers too.
If you want to make an impact, you go after the baddest dog in the yard.
DDP vs. The Rock was pitched by Dallas upon his arrival to WWF, but the company had different plans for the master of the diamond cutter. Not better plans, but plans nonetheless. Both DDP and Rock carried the moniker of People's Champion during their time in opposing companies, so having Page come over and claim he was the real People's Champ kinda made a lot of sense. And seeing as Team WCW were already heels and Rock was still one of WWF's top babyfaces, then the rest of the story writes itself. The loser of the match can no longer claim to be the People's Champion, and the winner gets all the bragging rights. Who would win this match? I'd go with DDP, seeing as Rock's already firmly established in WWF, but you just know that wasn't going to happen either. When Rock came back to WWF to get involved in the Invasion storyline, he was instantly put in a WCW title match against Booker T at SummerSlam, so I would have scrapped that match, have Booker T wrestle someone else, and in its place I would book DDP versus The Rock. I think fans today would have remembered the People's Champ versus the People's Champ way more fondly than Booker T versus Rock for the WCW title. I do like the idea of the WCW World Belt getting defended on WWF shows, but the overall lineage of the title also feels a bit messed up towards the end of 2001. A part of me wishes the belt got deactivated after the WCW buyout, but sure. In a way, it was still cool seeing WWF stars like Rock, Jericho and Kurt Angle wearing the big gold belt. While this dream rivalry would have been ideal for DDP, even if it only produced one match, Dallas would, in reality, end up debuting as a stalker. Dallas Page would stalk and terrorize The Undertaker's wife in one of the more baffling creative decisions of the whole Invasion angle, and on top of that, Dallas was annihilated by both The Undertaker and his wife Sarah on pay-per-view. Nothing to say here that hasn't already been said, it's just ridiculous. Rock, meanwhile, would win the WCW title and play a key part in leading Team WWF to victory during the Invasion storyline. So what you really need to think about is this: would The Rock's popularity or overall stock get affected if he took a loss to DDP on pay-per-view? With how over The Rock was during this time period, I'd say the answer is a resounding no. A victory for DDP over The Rock would have done wonders for Dallas's early days in WWF, and I know what you're thinking, DDP was getting a little old at the time while Rock was still in his prime. Well, remember too that Rock was going to disappear soon to make more movies. DDP didn't stay in WWF for too long either, but that was due to a neck injury, something obviously unforeseen during the planning stages.
Now, Triple H, you're either standing with us or you're standing against us.
Triple H versus the NWO. This one was going to happen in some shape or form, but when Kevin Nash got injured on live TV, the whole NWO disbanded and plans changed. The NWO came over to WWF during the No Way Out 2002 pay-per-view, and this version of the groundbreaking faction consisted of original members Scott Hall, Kevin Nash and Hollywood Hogan. When Scott was fired and when Hogan turned babyface, a new version of the NWO was brought to television. This one included Booker T, though he got kicked out again, There was Sean Waltman, The Big Show, and Shawn Michaels. Triple H, meanwhile, was having a good year in 2002 after coming back from injury and going on to win the Royal Rumble and the Undisputed Championship at WrestleMania 18. The game was also a babyface, and fans reacted to Hunter very well during this time period. The NWO wanted to bring Hunter into the group. Triple H was already good friends with Nash, HBK, and X-Pac, but even though Hunter had these good friends in the group, you could still sense a little apprehension from the King of Kings. He didn't stop the NWO from approaching him in a friendly manner, but he didn't flat out join his friends either. It got to the point where Shawn Michaels stated that Triple H had to make a decision within a certain time frame, and Hunter had to decide if he was with the NWO or against the NWO. Even when Nash went down with his injury, Shawn made a point to call out Triple H in order to hurry up the game's decision. But we would never know what Hunter was going to do because the NWO collapsed and plans changed. Instead of the NWO wanting Triple H to join Raw and join the faction, Eric Bischoff took over, and the storyline was all about Eric wanting Triple H on the red brand, while Stephanie, Hunter's wife, wanted him on the blue brand. Seeing as Michaels and Hunter would end up wrestling each other later in the year, the most natural assumption here would be Hunter wasn't going to join the NWO, and instead he was going to begin a rivalry against his former friends. But do keep in mind that Triple H ended up turning heel, and it was actually Shawn Michaels who wrestled as a babyface, a dynamic that wouldn't have worked if the NWO were still around. If a Triple H vs NWO storyline did take place though, you have to face reality. There's a very good chance that Hunter would just steamroll through the group and the once groundbreaking faction would look second rate against one King of Kings. So you gotta look at this one a bit more critically. Is it a big dream rivalry? No, it isn't. DX versus NWO's the one people would have been clamoring for, but I think it's good to include Triple H versus NWO in this video because at one point it looked like it was actually going to happen. I honestly wouldn't have minded it either, seeing as Triple H missed out on most of the invasion angle. I'm just curious as to how it would have all played out. If I was in charge of this one, I would have had Triple H refuse to join the NWO. He has a few matches on pay-per-view against different members, and eventually he talks HBK into leaving the group to reform DX for one night only, giving fans that DX versus NWO match before ending both groups and letting everyone involved go their separate ways.
I am the Reaper of Wayward Souls. You have one chance to save your own soul.
Undertaker versus Sting. This one seems too obvious and too easy. Everyone talks about this one when WWF versus WCW fantasy booking gets discussed, but it's for really good reason too. Take away the gimmicks for a moment and you've got two men who were extremely loyal to their respective companies before, during and after the Monday Night War. They became cornerstones, they were very reliable, and they both earned respect from their peers and the fans watching at home. It just so happens that both men have gimmicks that would really blend well together, and there seems like an infinite amount of ways you could tell the story of their rivalry. Of all these possibilities though, WWE decided to not book The Undertaker versus Sting, even though they had the opportunity to do so in 2015. Sting was very close to getting involved in an Undertaker match at WrestleMania in 2011. Remember when Taker came back and those vignettes aired that gave the date 2/21/11? Yeah, it seems that WWE originally ran these for Sting and The Undertaker. Taker was always going to return on this date, but the vignettes were reportedly going to end with the appearance of both The Undertaker and the Stinger. TNA even ran similar videos when the Icon returned to Impact on the 3rd of March that same year. Anyway, The Undertaker wrestled Triple H instead at WrestleMania 27 and Sting continued work in TNA. The Icon then made his WWE debut in late 2014 and he went straight after Triple H in The Authority. But seeing as it was still months away from WrestleMania season, there could have still been a chance for the Stinger and The Undertaker to clash in the middle of the ring. There was still good enough time to build that story. Instead, at WrestleMania, The Undertaker would wrestle Bray Wyatt while Sting wrestled Triple H. The Phenom and the Icon would never cross paths in WWE, even though it seemed like a sure thing. So what happened? Well, Sting really wanted the match. Steve Borden was excited at the idea of wrestling The Undertaker, and he also made his feelings clear to WWE and to the public. The Undertaker said in his heart he wanted to have that Sting match, but The Undertaker also said that the match would have been better in the 90s or in the early 2000s. The Undertaker also felt the match wouldn't live up to expectations with his body breaking down at the time, and let's be honest, Sting in 2015 was not the same as Sting in the 90s, neither was The Undertaker. During a WWE 2K18 promotional tour, Sting also said that he spoke to The Undertaker about how much he wanted the match to happen, and it sounds like The Undertaker had no interest. Have a listen.
We had a brief conversation, and I just told him, I said, man, I've always wanted to have that match, wasn't necessarily reciprocated, so I'm not sure where he stands or what, if he had any interest at all, to be quite honest. But I did. I don't mind saying.
On the flip side of this, The Undertaker took part in an interview with Barstool Sports, and he said he never talked to Sting about the potential dream match. Undertaker said, I knew him, I was in WCW in '89, I knew him there, and then I really didn't see him until he came here. We never called each other, hey, would you like to do this super match, mega match, or whatever? My schedule was always full. Triple H vs Sting got booked for Mania instead, and it was quite a bloated match filled with run-ins and surprises. The WWE tried to turn it into a WCW vs WWE thing, and essentially it wasn't received very well. Fans were also annoyed, yet not too surprised when Triple H beat the Stinger. Sting would end up getting injured towards the end of 2015, and he announced his quote-unquote retirement in 2016. So any hopes of The Undertaker vs Sting were quickly flushed down the toilet, and the match never happened. You gotta be realistic here too though, and think about what a Sting vs Undertaker match would have looked like in 2015. Could they get through it? Yes, absolutely, but would it live up to expectations? That's the question you gotta ask yourself. When The Undertaker says it would have been something special in the 90s or early 2000s when compared to 2015 and beyond, he's probably right.
Them 3 letters on your chest, is that supposed to impress me? Is that supposed to intimidate me? If it does, it don't.
Stone Cold and Hollywood Hogan were both active in WWF when the NWO made its return in 2002. Reportedly, Steve Austin was offered the Hogan match at Mania 18 before The Rock, and Austin declined. Bruce Pritchard said that Rock vs Hogan was always the plan, and the next step was to build up to Austin vs Hogan, potentially at WrestleMania 19. Jim Ross said that Austin watched Hogan's match against The Undertaker at Judgment Day 2002, and he decided right there and then that he wasn't gonna wrestle Hulk because Hulk was too beaten up. And Steve Austin explained to Hogan himself on the Steve Austin Show back in 2019 that he regretted not having the match and he was in a bad spot personally at the time. Stone Cold said this while Hogan was on his podcast.
Dude, I was in such a different headspace back when that window of opportunity presented itself, and sometimes I kick myself in the ass over it, and I think, man, I don't know, I was so frazzled towards the end, I was just in a bad space, and I don't know, it never happened, and it should have happened. I think if we could have just gotten in a room, you and I, and just talked, because you know what? And you probably never you probably never knew this, but you left, man, what, 93, 92, but you ended up in WCW in 94?
Yeah, 94.
Okay, I remember all of a sudden the word on the street, I'm Stunning Steve, man, I'm upcoming, I'm going to be the next Ric Flair. Well, we always know that there's never going to be another Ric Flair, there's never going to be another Hulk Hogan, there's only going to be the next whoever you are. But all of a sudden, here comes the biggest attraction in the history of the business to WCW, and I'm thinking, great. And I'm sitting there right across from you, we're in your house, and I say this with respect, but I'm thinking, okay, here comes the top attraction in the world. He's coming to WCW. I was fine when you were in WWF, but all of a sudden you come down there, and now I'm another notch further down the ladder. And I always had this grudge against you because now, you were the guy.
Yeah.
Now how am I going to overtake this when I can't even get past, three-quarter mid-card status? So there was always that grudge, and it was competitive. I was like, man, why is this guy here now? And so anyway, it was always this thing, and then all of a sudden I turn into Stone Cold, and then you come back from WCW where I got squashed down another notch. But I think if we'd ever gotten to a room and had just a chill conversation, we probably could have done business together, and that'd probably be one of the biggest regrets of my career, other than not, jobbing for Brock. Well, I never would have done a job, but I wish I would have showed up. But I would have loved to have worked a program with you, especially now in my post prime, looking back at all the stuff that you did. And I was a fan from day one anyway. But you know what I mean? When you get caught up in inner workings, I guess I was in my head, and I guess I worked myself into a shoot, and it was just a dumb thing for me to do.
Hulk Hogan also acknowledged that there was hate between himself and Stone Cold, pinpointing the 2006 Hall of Fame as a moment when he knew that he and Steve were not on great terms. According to Hulk, Hogan, had extended his hand to Bret Hart backstage, and Bret wouldn't shake his hand. Austin then swooped in and he pulled Bret away from the awkward meeting to go and sit in the dressing room. And then, while on stage, both Steve Austin and Bret took unscripted jabs at Hogan. Hulk always felt Austin didn't like him. Remember too that Austin made fun of Hulk back in ECW. So it appears we have a clash of personalities here, and that's what stopped the match from ever happening. Too much pride maybe, and not enough thought put into the money such a match could generate. There's also the question of who would win such a monumental match between two of the most popular superstars of their respective eras, but Hogan went on record to say that he would have no issues putting Austin over, and you know what, I believe him too. He had no issues losing to The Rock when he came back, and I don't think there's been any reports of Hogan not wanting to do jobs when he made his WWF return. Would it have been a good match when the opportunity presented itself? Well, yeah, it could have. Again, look at Rock vs Hogan. Not a technical masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but a match still considered today as one of WrestleMania's finest. A match that's used as a prime example in the old work rate versus showmanship argument of professional wrestling.
Day by day, by the grace of God, I have earned my way back into this ring.
Shawn Michaels versus Eddie Guerrero. Alright, so this one's cheating a bit, but it's Eddie Guerrero, so I'm allowed to. Eddie Guerrero was already in WWF before the invasion angle took place, but Shawn Michaels wasn't actively wrestling. HBK got back to in-ring work in late 2002. There were plenty of opportunities for this match to take place. Shawn was a Raw guy while Eddie was a SmackDown guy, but cross-promotional matches would have given these guys the opportunity to step in the ring and have a match that many predict could have been one for the ages. There were only two occasions when these guys could have crossed paths in the ring, and that was in the 2003 and 2005 Royal Rumble matches. They never had any other chances to face each other in any way, shape or form, and that would have made their eventual clash in the ring mean so much more. I don't feel I need to talk about how good this match would have been from a bell-to-bell standpoint, seeing as both guys had a wrestling style that would complement one another. The match would have been awesome, no doubt about it, but what storyline angle could they have went for if we forget about the usual brand supremacy stuff? We could have had a build-up that really focused on the Latino Heat and the Heartbreak Kid monikers, Eddie calling himself the real showstopper and the real icon of pro wrestling, while old HBK spent his career avoiding the Heat. Or we could have went a bit more personal with both guys having issues with addictions. The men overcame all the odds to be where they are now. They both found salvation, and now they want to put on this celebratory match to kinda put the past behind them and move forward. Court Bauer, who worked as a writer for WWE, confirmed that the match was actually made official on the weekend of Eddie's passing. Court said, "It was discussed the weekend that Eddie passed away. That Friday and that Saturday morning we had conference calls. We were now mapping out the road to WrestleMania 22. I don't remember who introduced the match, Shawn versus Eddie, but I remember the room was like, wow, that's a great match. Then Bruce Pritchard chimed in. I vividly remember him saying, well, you've got these two Texas guys, heartthrobs from different eras, great workers from different eras, never wrestled, this could be huge. When he said that, Vince was like, put it in there, let's put it down, and that match was made official. This could have been one for the ages for sure, but Eddie's untimely passing meant that fans never got to see the dream match. At WrestleMania 22, Shawn had a match with Vince McMahon instead, and that kicked off the whole God and WWE angle and eventually the return of D-Generation X. What makes Shawn vs Eddie different from, say, Undertaker vs Sting or Hogan vs Austin? It's the fact that while both HBK and Guerrero had excellent runs during the 90s, they were still absolute top tier performers in the mid-2000s, with many saying Shawn in particular was even better during his second stint in comparison to his first solo run. So this would have been a match that not only attracted fans due to the characters and history involved, but it also would have been a fantastic in-ring contest that had the potential to put the young cats in WWE to shame. The question is then, who would win such a match? That's a hard choice for a lot of people to make, I'd assume. Personally speaking, I'd go with Eddie Guerrero, but either choice would be fine. This isn't like Sting coming over to WWE for his first WrestleMania match or anything. Both Shawn and Eddie already had great WWE careers before the match was penciled in. What other matches can you think of that could have took place in WWE but unfortunately they didn't happen? Remember to keep your dates in mind when adding your comments. So for example, Austin and Goldberg were in WWE at the same time, but Austin retired from in-ring competition following WrestleMania 19. So that match could never have happened really. Let me know what matches you can think of, let me know your thoughts in the comments as always, and thank you very much for watching this video. Take care.